Welcome viewers, Michael Kalinovski here, and I'm here with our local law expert, Judy Feeney from Feeney Lawyers.
Thank you, Michael.
Judy, could you tell us a little bit what Feeney Lawyers specialise in?
Yes, look, we're a general practice, Michael, and when we say a general practice, we do family law, we do probate, we do leasing, we do conveyancing, of course, through Mango Conveyancing. We do sale and purchase of businesses, we do wills, power of attorneys, power of guardianships, but in particular I'd like to just mention today that that I'd like to talk about probate.
Yep.
Because I'm finding that not many people, it's a very confronting topic, and not many people understand what to do when their loved one dies.
There's not that much information out there as well. It's a really touchy subject.
It is a very touchy subject, and you need someone that's quite compassionate,
yeah,
and sensitive, and that can help you through the process.
Of course.
So we do a lot of probate, and that's why I'd like to discuss it with the viewers.
Sure.
You know, when someone does pass, there are a couple of things, first of all, that I think people should be aware of and what they need. I call it the gone to God files, and one of them is a will. Everybody should have a will.
Yep.
Because if you don't have a will, you have to apply for letters of administration, and letters of administration is a very expensive exercise, and the court appoints the person who's going to distribute your estate.
Okay.
And there can be a lot of arguments with that. If you have three sisters,
yeah,
and they all want to be the person who the court appoints,
sure,
that's going to be a very costly exercise. So we need a will, and that only comes into effect once you've passed. The other documents whilst you're living that you need is the power of attorney and power of guardianship. Now, power of attorney is everything to do with your finances or your land interests whilst you are alive, but you don't have perhaps the ability to make the decisions. Or not necessarily when you're older, sometimes it's even when you're younger. Sometimes people go overseas for 3 months,
yep,
but they're selling their house. So they need to put a power of attorney in place to give someone the authority to sign the documentation, the mortgage documentation. That's a power of attorney. Power of guardianship is if an unfortunate circumstance arises and that you can't make decisions with respect to nursing homes, medical treatments, operations, your lifestyle, where to live, then you need a power of guardianship. These 3 documents are essential. They're not activated until you need them, but if you don't have them, it can be a very costly exercise with you going to what's referred to as the guardianship tribunal. And if you can avoid that arena, it's recommended, because there's been a lot of hurt come out of that arena. Now, what happens when someone dies? You know, I just wanted to briefly explain that if they have a will in place, then we need to get that will, and we need to put it through a process called probate, and that is an application to the Supreme Court, in which the Supreme Court has a look at what we provide to them, and they stamp it, and then that allows the nominated executor or executrix in the will to actually distribute and administer the estate according to the wishes of the deceased. Now, there's lots of little interesting documentation that you need. You need a death certificate. So where do you get the death certificate? You have to go to a reputable funeral parlour. We're quite affiliated with White Ladies, Vanessa Reeves down in Rockdale. They provide you with a death certificate. The death certificate is then what you bring us, and from there we can take the application forward. You have to gather all the information about the deceased, so all their bank statements, all their assets, all their jewellery. You have to get a list of everything. What I recommend to people who come to me to do a will, we give them what's called a will index. The will index provides all this information in general format. We put it behind the will so that if something happens, we're not writing to every single bank in Australia trying to find where the accounts are for this deceased person, or we're not looking for properties and searches, because this all costs money. What you can do is put it all in a list, then we have it nicely tucked away behind the will. If something happens, we bring it out right to the relevant people, and the process is shortened or halved because it's organised. So I think these are important tips that you should know, that that when someone does pass, or even if they haven't and you don't know somebody who has, but get yourself in order to help other people.
Yeah.
I think it's very important because I'm seeing more and more. Yeah, I see it all the time, and it's a fact of life.
Yeah. Okay, and obviously the question will be asked: how long will that probate matter usually take from experience?
Yeah, it depends, because it depends on the log or how many people have made the application in the courts. So we've had turnarounds of 3 weeks, and we've had turnarounds of 6 months. But we're mindful, because wills have to be drafted very carefully, because when someone dies and there's money involved, there's a lot of arguments and there's a lot of questions by a lot of siblings. And there are many a times we've had a round table discussion. You know, when you do a will, there's the executor and there's the beneficiaries. You have to be very careful when you select an executor, because you have to choose somebody that really cares for your wishes that are done. Now, what we recommend is usually a solicitor. So I'm on a person's will, plus somebody of the family. And that way we can just guide them through, and to ensure that the process is as smooth as possible. Often if you have the one person, they get bombarded by the siblings as to why haven't you done this or why haven't you done that, and the process, and it can become quite emotionally draining.
I think it is a grieving process as well. Like, so you don't want to put so much pressure on the family to go through all the unnecessary stress.
Absolutely, but when there is unnecessary stress, well, then you've got, you know, what's called contesting the will, and a will has to be valid. It has to be signed a particular way. It has to be drafted a particular way. It's not what you think, to go down to the news agency and buy one from the shelf. You have to be very articulate. Otherwise, you're opening up your scope for a fight from other people, and that's called contesting, and we have people contesting families' wills constantly.
Is there something that you've come in the past that you want to share, so we can do like a tip or something that we want to avoid any problems as far as wills?
Yes, I just think to be very clear in your will. You know, make sure that the person who's drafting your will, that it works. You know, it's all very good to give $100,000 to the RSPCA, but if you only have $50,000 in your bank account, it's not going to work. So, you know, you have to really make it work. And sometimes the biggest issues that arise is when you've got, you know, you've got Anna and Mark, but they're both of second marriages. And then they've got their children. So they've had children from their original marriage, then they come together, and then they have children from their second marriage. And then one of them dies. So there's a lot of things that you have to think about so that there's no arguments. You know, because let's face it, there's a lot of people, divorced people, a lot of people remarrying, which is fantastic, but we have to secure ourselves.
I think it's not the topic that we discuss at the dinner table on a regular basis, but it's something that we have to bring to the forefront so we can be aware of.
We do, and it's someone that you can ring, you can talk to me about it. I'm happy to discuss it. I'm happy to consider the consequences, and perhaps guide you in, you know, or guide you to the right people. Maybe it's your accountant that you need to speak to restructure into a testamental trust or a hybrid trust, whatever's necessary to meet your needs. Maybe it's just a general will.
And this is just a one conversation. You just get out of the way.
Absolutely, tuck it away, and it's done.
Done. Excellent.
And that's it.
Wise words from our legal expert Judy Feeney from Feeney Lawyers. Judy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.